For those of you guys who don't know who I am, my name is Maxky. I am a Grandmaster Peak mid lane Ekko player, and I have been playing Ekko since all the way back in Season 5, right around his release date. Throughout the years, Ekko has went through several phases where he became very popular and permabanned, or forgotten and not even played. It all started with Release Date Ekko, which turned into Tank Ekko, which turned into Forgotten Ekko, which turned into True Damage Jungle Ekko, Permabanned Ekko, to the state we have today. With all that being said, I want to take some time to make this video to discuss the rise and the fall of Ekko in the mid lane. When you look at mid lane tier lists from the best players, coaches, streamers that know a lot about the game, you see one common trend. Usually Ekko is nowhere to be found on the list. And then when people ask where is Ekko, because a lot of people love playing Ekko mid, you get this answer. Ekko hasn't been a mid laner for 3+ years. Those words hit harder than a dagger from a 10-0 Katarina. If you go to any of the League of Legends data websites, for example like u.gg, and you look up Ekko, you see that Ekko usually has double the play rate in jungle than he does mid, when years ago, mid lane was his only role. On top of that, when Ekko is doing good in the meta, he almost has a triple pick rate now in the jungle versus mid. When you look at the best players from NA, EU West, Korea, and you look at the ladder and the top 300 players, you'll notice that you don't see much Ekko. But if you do see Ekko, most of the time it'll be an Ekko jungle main or just a jungle player that plays Ekko jungle. Ekko mid can still be played today, it's not that bad, but why did jungle become his best role? In order to find the answer to that question, we have to go back to the beginning of Ekko. Ekko was a menace on release date. His abilities cost very little mana, his ult actually was 0 mana, he had good base stats, his passive actually slowed, and he actually built good AP items unlike today. Riot was quick to adjust and fix Ekko, but there was a big problem. Ekko was a skirmisher assassin, yet his passive slowed, his W stunned, and he gained a lot of health on his ultimate. This was a recipe for disaster, and it actually created, through all of Season 6, Tank Ekko. Ekko became the king of competitive during Season 6 when it was Tank Ekko top meta. Instead of being an assassin skirmisher in the mid lane like he was designed to be, because of Ekko's base stats and utility, he became a tank top menace. He would go Iceborne Gauntlet, Spear of Visage, Merc Tread, all the tank items, and because of his base stats and utility, he would do so much damage, so much CC, but then if you try to kill him, he presses R and he has 2 health bars as a giant tank. This is one of the reasons why SKT won Worlds and we got SKT Ekko, which is a pretty nice skin, but it ultimately led to Ekko being hard nerfed, his base stats were reworked, and then Ekko basically entered his Forgotten era when he was pretty weak, not a lot of people played him, and he was just chilling for around 2 years. I like to refer to Season 7 as the year of the Ekko in the mid lane, because top tank Ekko was losing popularity, it was nerfed, so the only people playing Ekko anymore were the AP mid laners. I myself went from gold to diamond in 1,000 games only playing Ekko this year. That's when I started doing content because I became pretty good at Ekko. But there was already someone really good at Ekko during this time, and that was Saint Killian. If you guys don't know who Saint Killian was, he was basically one of the best Ekko players back in the day, and he actually invented Frost Queen's Ekko. I actually made a Frost Queen's Ekko guide 5 years ago. Ekko needed gold. After his base stats were nerfed, he was pretty weak. But if you go Frost Queen's Ekko, which is basically Spell Thieves, the support item, except you could go with mid lane because there was no restrictions, you basically, every time you fight, you generate income, you passively generate income, and it was a cheap item. So you could finish your Frost Queen's claim, and you get the Twin Shadows passive, which was 2 little ghosties that slow people. You get to finish your Frost Queen's claim, your boots, and your Proto Belt, which were all cheap. By the time the enemy champions finished their first item in boots. So you always had an item advantage and a snowball advantage. We didn't know it back then, but in Season 7, when Riot buffed Ekko's passive to do double damage to monsters, we just didn't know that it was the beginning of the end of Ekko in the mid lane. Fortunately for us Ekko mains, Ekko is pretty much a forgotten champion through Season 7 and Season 8. Ekko jungle didn't really exist yet, and only one Trix played him. Riot only buffed Ekko one time the entire Season 8, so we got to play our champion as much as we wanted. On top of that, Ekko made a nice guest appearance in Worlds in Season 8. So the end of Season 8 brought a lot of NA fans a lot of hope, because somehow Cloud9 made it to semifinals at Worlds and versed Fnatic. And on top of that, for someone like me, Licorice picked Ekko top. Ekko top was picked because people started to play tank Victor top, and Ekko was a pretty decent mid lane counter to Victor, but in top lane, the lane is kind of different, so Ekko was not that much of a top lane Victor counter, but if you still get ahead, you can still counter a mage like Victor. You have to ask yourself, why isn't Ekko played more often in pro play? It's because he has bad base stats, he's weak, and if he falls behind, it's even worse, especially if you misplay. And in this play for Cloud9, Licorice really entered his team. Well, all of NA entered, but he really messed up because he should have thrown his W towards the tower because he knew Victor would have to run towards his tower, especially with the Xin Zhao. But instead, Ekko wasted his W, pretty much wasted his ult as well, and then they give up a double kill. So if played better and executed better, maybe NA would have won the series. Strange things started to happen in Season 9 when Ekko got a buff after a buff after a buff. So this made Ekko's popularity go up, and because more people wanted to play Ekko, a lot of junglers started to play Ekko, and then they realized that Ekko jungle is kind of OP. But why did Ekko get all these buffs? It's because of true damage Ekko. Thankfully, I made this economics video in patch 9.20 to show Ekko's ban rate and pick rate. Ekko jungle pick rate was 12% with a 25% ban rate, and Ekko mid lane pick was only 5%, so all the junglers are the reason why Ekko was being banned. But why was Ekko jungle so good? Well, if you remember earlier, I was talking about how Ekko has low base stats and needs a lot of gold and AP to start being useful. So Frost Queen's claim, our money printer, was removed, so now we were doing normal builds. We were going Corrupting Potion, Doran's, Dark Seal, into Proto Belt. That's a lot of money right there. If you add that all up, 500 plus 400 plus 350 plus 2600 Proto Belt, that's a pretty penny for your first item, because Ekko needed those starting items to actually be able to lane. Everybody built them on Ekko. If you look at Ekko jungle's items, you start Hunter Talisman, which was the old jungle item, and that builds into our Runic Echoes, which was the AP jungle item that gave you 80 AP. But guess what? It was a very cheap item, and you already built into it, so it only cost you about 2,000 gold to complete an 80 AP item, which Ekko loves that because he's snowballing instead of spending all his money on Doran's Ring, Corrupting Potion, so you're able to snowball a lot faster item-wise. Also, don't forget, Ekko jungle does not have to lane at all. So if you have to verse someone like Yasuo, LeBlanc, Ryze, Cassidy, all of these really annoying matchups back in the day, even today, you don't have to lane verse those in the jungle. You could very easily path away from the enemy jungle and just scale, while also ganking lanes, which you can't really do from Ekko mid. Hence why Ekko jungle was played a lot. Ekko was pick, ban, and solo queue throughout the end of Season 9 into Season 10. It wasn't until 10.3 when Ekko jungle finally got a slight nerf, and he started to lose popularity. Other junglers got buffed, Ekko was, getting a little bit weaker, so he lost popularity, but he was still primarily a popular jungle pick. It wasn't until the end of Season 10 when Ekko finally became a true jungler and overtook the mid lane role. Riot buffed his damage to monsters again, and they removed the cap. So now Ekko could full damage monster camps, 2k smites on Baron. He could do his full damage power on any camp, which solidified his jungle position.
We could do this with that.
But let's not forget the fun part of Season 10. Season 10 was the birth of Nashor's Tooth Ekko, the Church of Nashors. If you guys don't know who Ha Ha Never Lucky is, he was basically an Ekko streamer who still streams time to time, but I think he's focusing more on playing amateur or whatever, so he's a really good player. He was pretty much the best, if not one of the best Ekko mid laners, and he was one of the first people to religiously use Nashor's Tooth. He's the reason why I started using Nashor's Tooth, and Nashor's Tooth, after all the buffs and changes to items, is pretty much a really good item now, and it's probably more core on Ekko than Lichbane is, depending on the game state. In Season 11, after the item rework, Ekko has pretty much stayed exactly the same from Season 11 to now. Honestly, even further back, because Ekko is still building Protobelt, and Protobelt came out years before the item rework. So Ekko has pretty much been in the exact same state for several years now. They changed the items, Ekko's build stayed the same. They changed the AD items, Ekko's build stayed the same. Ekko just stays the same throughout everything that's happened in the last 2 years, even longer. So I just hope that in the future, Riot did say they're going to do an AP item rework. Hopefully there's some new AP Assassin or AP Bruiser items that maybe can change Ekko's build path or playstyle, because it's literally has been the same for years now. So I'm going to end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned a little bit about the history of Ekko in the mid lane. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.